The IDF has begun a ground operation in southern Lebanon to destroy the threat from the Iranian-backed terrorist organization Hezbollah. After more than 11 months of observing rockets, UAVs, and anti-tank missiles from Hezbollah, the IDF has begun a powerful targeted ground operation in southern Lebanon to push this threat away from our border. The Air Force has also launched additional strikes on Hezbollah targets in the Dahia neighborhood of southern Beirut, and for the first time in the war, also in a large Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon. The commander of Hamas in Lebanon, Abu el-Amin, was eliminated in an Israeli airstrike, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posts a message to the Iranian people saying, "Israel stands by your side. May we find a future of prosperity and peace together." Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 361st day of the war against Iran, the head of the axis of evil, and all its terror proxies in Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, and all the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. Before we begin, please take a second to press the subscribe button so that you will never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Almost a year after the beginning of Hezbollah's daily attacks on Israeli communities, the IDF crossed the border shortly before midnight on Monday and engaged with Hezbollah forces on their home turf in southern Lebanon. The IDF spokesperson's office declared that the IDF is doing everything required in order to protect the citizens of the State of Israel and return the residents of the north to their homes safely. The Hezbollah positions in these southern Lebanese villages near the border pose an immediate and real threat to the Israeli communities. The IDF operates according to a regular plan designed by the General Staff and the Northern Command, for which the forces have been training and preparing for the past few months. The ground forces are accompanied by an assault effort by the Air Force and artillery forces, which attack military targets in the area in a coordinated effort with the ground forces fighters. The stages of the campaign have been approved and are being carried out in accordance with the decisions of the political echelon of Israel. The Northern Arrows operation is continuing according to the assessment of the situation at the same time as the fighting in the Gaza Strip and other arenas. The IDF continues to fight and act to achieve the goals of the war and does everything necessary to protect the citizens of the State of Israel and return the residents of the north to their homes safely. Hezbollah, for its part, began an increased rate of fire at the Galilee communities near midnight after the IDF began the ground maneuver. The Shiite terrorist organization fired dozens of rockets at the Miron area, causing some light damage and fires, but no casualties. Hezbollah issued a statement claiming to have targeted IDF troops in the area, but most of the rockets hit open areas nowhere near any IDF positions. Meanwhile, overnight Monday, the Air Force was hard at work pounding Hezbollah targets all over Lebanon, especially in the Dahia neighborhood of southern Beirut. But before the strikes began on Sunday evening, IDF spokesman in Arabic, Lieutenant Colonel Avichai Aderi, issued an urgent warning to the residents of these neighborhoods to evacuate to a distance of 500 meters from buildings that he says are close to Hezbollah facilities. Less than an hour later, attacks were reported in Dahia, and a security official in Lebanon told Reuters that Israel carried out at least 6 attacks. Many videos and photographs of these attacks soon began to appear online. Also, the Lebanese media reported Monday evening that the IDF attacked Ain el-Hilwa, the largest Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon near the city of Sidon in the south of the country. A Palestinian official told the media that the attack was aimed at a single building. This is the first time that Israel has attacked a refugee camp in this war, and 2 Palestinian security officials told the Reuters news agency that the target of the attack was Munir Makdea, the commander of the Palestinian branch of the Fatah movement. Reports about this ground incursion have been prominent in headlines all around the world. The United States State Department already announced yesterday evening that Israel is currently carrying out limited operations along the border. This message was delivered at the same time as heavy artillery shelling last night to various areas on the Lebanese border with Israel, along with tank fire. Israeli media portals began to report shortly before midnight that the Political Security Cabinet had approved the next phase of the operation in Lebanon. Some of those reports included a note about how, during the discussion, ministers commented on the leaks that came out from the Americans regarding the maneuver after they received an update on the matter from Israel. Tonight, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant spoke with his American counterpart, Defense Minister Lloyd Austin. According to the Pentagon, the two agreed on the need to dismantle attacks infrastructure against Israel along the border to ensure that Hezbollah cannot carry out October 7 style attacks on the northern communities. Austin also issued another public warning about the serious consequences that Iran will face if it chooses to launch a direct military attack against Israel. We will review the war in the north in a more detailed manner and will soon travel to the north to report to you from the ground about what is happening. If you want to stay updated in real time on what is happening in Israel, go to our website at tbnisrael.com/news. You can also look for TBN Israel on social media networks to stay truly updated in real time. Even as the war was moving into a higher gear with this ground incursion yesterday, we heard criticism from American President Joe Biden, who up till the last minute was calling for a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement. But apparently, whatever irritations the American might have had with Israel over taking this step against their wishes, it is not enough to make them abandon Israel to the tender mercies of the Iranian regime. As Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently said, Iranian officials love to give fiery speeches about how they're going to destroy Israel, and they also love to talk about how much they will support Hezbollah. But every day and every hour that passes without a direct attack on Israel from Iran makes all that talk sound hollow. Still, Israel does not have the luxury of not taking these threats seriously, and the Americans have their own assets and interests in the Middle East which they also need to protect. That is why the Americans are sending several additional squadrons of F-15E, F-16 and A-10 aircrafts to the region. This reinforces the F-22 squadron, which is already here, as well as other ground, naval and air assets that the Pentagon regularly keeps here in the Middle East. For their part, the Iranians appear to be divided in their plans on what to do next. Senior Middle East analysts have described the situation in Tehran as chaotic, with hatred arguments among senior officials. The Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps is reported to be very upset with the loss of so many of their senior officers and strategic assets to Israeli airstrikes in recent months, and they want some payback. But there are other voices concealing restraint and patience, pointing out that the Iranian economy is in a very bad situation right now, and the Israelis have shown a willingness and ability to hit strategic targets far away from their own territory. In this context, it is worth mentioning that the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas, where most of Iran's oil export capacity is located, is much closer to Israel than the Hubeiba port in Yemen, which the Israeli Air Force hit on Sunday, inflicting massive damage to the Houthis. If the political echelon in Israel gave the order, Bandar Abbas could suffer the same fate, and this would deal a crippling blow to Iran's already fragile economy. It's also worth mentioning that Iran's obsolete air force, which is mostly made up of airplanes that were built when Jimmy Carter, who turns 100 today, was the President of the United States, could do little to stop such a strike from Israel. Happy birthday, President Carter, by the way. And now, back to Hezbollah. The first official message from one of the surviving leaders of the organization surfaced on Monday. Looking badly shaken and sweating, Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, spoke for several minutes from an undisclosed location, stammering out the kind of blustery threats and rhetoric that his predecessor, Hassan Nasrallah, was so well known for. Qasem spoke at length about his love and devotion for the recently deceased Hassan Nasrallah before declaring that if the Israelis want to go underground, we are ready for it. The enemy will not achieve his goals. We will emerge victorious. This is what he said. And to the residents of South Lebanon, he said, we are with you. We will win as it was in 2006. To make a brief comment on all of this, the residents of southern Lebanon suffered terrible damage to their homes and lives because of the war that Hezbollah started with Israel in 2006. That war ended up in a draw, with neither side being able to claim victory. But the people of Lebanon definitely lost. I'm sure they remember, and I'm sure that they're not eager to go through that same experience once more, just so Hezbollah can tell their Iranian masters that they're still on the job. Moving on, Qasem also said in his statement that the loss of many of the Hezbollah leadership won't affect the organization because, as he claimed, for each position holder, a replacement was prepared in advance. Once again, we are left with the question of where is Iran? Media around the world are extensively covering the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, which has been escalating in recent weeks, and we are wondering about the reaction of the Iranian-sponsored militias around the region and the world. Iran's so-called axis of resistance includes Hezbollah as its crown jewel, but there are also the previously mentioned Houthis in Yemen and several armed groups in Iraq and Syria. These groups also include large numbers of Shiite volunteers from all over the Middle East, especially Afghanistan and Pakistan. Most of these militias are assessed to be poorly trained, armed, and organized, but the Iranians give them money and weapons to try and use them against Israel. In this war, the Houthis have been the most active in firing ballistic missiles and drones at Israel, while sporadic attacks have also come from smaller and weaker militias in Iraq and Syria. But there is also another possibility that Iran will try to activate lone wolf terrorist attacks against Israeli and Jewish targets all over the world, especially in Latin America, where Hezbollah has a large presence among the Lebanese diaspora and ties with narcotics trafficking syndicates. With this in mind, security has been heightened at Israeli diplomatic facilities and Jewish community centers and synagogues around the world, but so far there have not been any major attacks from the Iranian-led axis of resistance or evil. This might change, especially if it begins to look like Hezbollah is being defeated by the IDF in Lebanon. But then again, that defeat might prompt the other, weaker and smaller members of the axis of resistance to decide that it's better to back off and not attack Israel again, or they might be next. In any event, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on any development moving forward. Now, I have a true story to tell you about the IDF's crazy commando operation deep in Lebanon inside the Hezbollah tunnels. But first, I would like to tell you about our sponsor for today's video. I'd like to introduce a vital part of Dr. Colbert's Keto Zone program, the ultimate brain zone package from Divine Health. This scientifically formulated package includes brain zone capsules for cognitive enhancement, MCT oil for rapid brain energy, omega-3 fish oil for brain health, and NeuroT for neurotransmitter support. Research highlights that these elements are crucial for cognitive performance. Since adding it to my routine, I've noticed significant improvements in mental clarity. To optimize your cognitive health, visit tbnisrael.drcolbert.com or call 888-826-1939. Remember, this is a key part of the comprehensive Keto Zone program, nourishing the minds that God has blessed us with. Getting back to the news, it has been revealed to the media that in recent months, IDF special forces have already been carrying out targeted raids across the Israeli-Lebanese border. These reports probably won't surprise anyone who is familiar with the IDF, but it might be a surprise to learn that some of these operations succeeded in penetrating the much-discussed tunnel network that Hezbollah has dug at tremendous effort and expenses into the bedrock beneath the soil of southern Lebanon. Hezbollah and its supporters often talk about these tunnels, saying that they offer an obstacle that the IDF will find impossible to overcome, but maybe they shouldn't be so sure about that. In any case, the IDF units that have been carrying out these missions have recently stepped up their activities, and that included preparing the way for this large-scale ground operation that the IDF launched on Monday evening. According to reports in the Wall Street Journal news portal, the IDF special units have mapped out and neutralized many of these defenses that Hezbollah has built in these areas, including the tunnels, paving the way for the regular units. This is a good place for me to ask you to continue helping TBN Israel spread the truth. You can do this by sharing our videos on YouTube, subscribing to this YouTube channel, and following us on social media. Let other people know who care about Israel and the truth see that there is a source of information that they can trust. While we were preparing this video, there was a late breaking news story about a surprising announcement from the Shin Bet warning of an increase in Iran's attempts to carry out assassination attacks in Israel. In recent weeks, the General Security Services has identified a significant step up in Iran's efforts to promote assassination attacks against targets in Israel, and several attempts have already been stopped. Very significant countermeasures were carried out by the Shin Bet, and some of the assassination attempts were discovered to be in advanced stages of data collection and readiness for execution. These details cannot be published at this time for obvious reasons. But what we know so far is that Iran is working to recruit Israeli citizens in order to harm Israeli officials, mostly through online meetings and money transfers. The Iranian authorities offer Israeli citizens they meet online money and other benefits in exchange for cooperation in targeting Israeli officials. But they also ask them to do more mundane things, like distribute flyers, spray paint graffiti, vandalize property, and so on. There are a lot of Israelis in financial distress these days, and they are vulnerable to these kinds of recruitment by the Iranian agents. It is possible that some of these people will take the money to do things without even knowing they are working for Iran, or that what they are doing will do much harm for Israel. This is another reason we need your help in spreading the truth. So please take a moment to click on the subscribe button so that together we can give the truth its rightful place. In conclusion, against the backdrop of reports of growing fears within the Iranian regime after the assassination of Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posted a video on Monday in which he spoke directly to the Iranian people in English, which is a language a surprisingly large number of Iranians understand. In his statement, Netanyahu spoke of peace and prosperity between the two nations, showering praise on the Iranian people and hinting that the only thing standing in the way of peace is the Islamic regime that rules in Tehran.
I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. There is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There is nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. But you know one simple thing. Iran's tyrants don't care about your future, but you do. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace. Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. The entire world deserves better. I know you don't support the rapists and murderers of Hamas and Hezbollah, but your leaders do. You deserve more. The people of Iran should know Israel stands with you. May we together know a future of prosperity and peace.
So please continue to pray for peace. Continue to pray for the Iranian people to get rid of this terrorist regime. Pray for the Israeli hostages that are still being kept in the Gaza Strip in some tunnel by Hamas terrorists. Pray for the IDF soldiers in the Gaza Strip, in Judea and Samaria, on all the fronts that Israel is defending at this moment. And most importantly, pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.